Alright guys, welcome back. Alright, so today we're going to finish off taking everything else off of the engine block. Really all that's left, we're going to take off the engine mounts, take off the valve covers, take the heads off. We're going to try to take off the crank pulley. I forgot to go get a jaw tool, but I can always just run the store and grab one of those real quick. Get the jaw tool, pull the pulley off, and I should be able to take off the front cover and be able to pretty much inspect the rest of the engine, see what's good in there, see what can be reused, sold, whoever needs it. Otherwise, after that, take the oil pan off and then pull the pistons out, everything else, and see what I can salvage off of this. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then we're gonna go from there. Alright, I got the valve covers off. So this side is the side that I had to basically kind of like replace most of the stuff to replace the cylinder on this side. So actually all of this looks really clean. I think I went through and I cleaned most of this off whenever I had it off. So that's why it looks like pretty pristine. Because I cleaned off a lot of like the dark oil that was still left over. Over here, I didn't take this valve cover off, so you kind of see it's still kind of dirty, but overall, like, you get rid of all that, but it's pretty clean underneath, so it's not too bad. So this engine was pretty well maintained for the most part. Alright, so I got these off. I guess I can take that off too. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look up the manual for what sequence to do the head bolts. Realistically, I'm not too worried about it getting warped, because it's this head at least is I already know is bad. This one I could probably salvage, but we'll see. First thing though, I gotta go grab the timing kit for this engine so I can loosen these bolts for the cam sprockets. Once I loosen that, I should be able to easily unbolt the bolts off the head so I can take them off, and then the timing chain and everything will kind of like sag down out of the way so that it's not still being held down, and I can pull the heads off and then see how it goes from there. Alright, so here we have the 4.0 single overhead cam tools. It's pretty straightforward how you use it. Just make sure you go through the instructions and have everything set up the way it should be going. And then also this tensioner or pre-tensioner, which helps to do the timing while you're doing it. And then you're going to put in the actual one once you're done. You're going to require a 27mm socket, which I guess I completely forgot this was here, but I left it in there because that was the only time I've ever used the 27mm socket. So that's staying here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the instructions on my phone so we can go ahead and undo the timing components on this engine and start taking it apart the rest of the way. Also, another thing, once you loosen the bolt, you actually have to take this off again because the bolt has a giant washer right there in the middle. I don't know if you can really see it, but that's going to keep this from having the bolt completely come off because of the adapter. So just loosen it, and then you'll be able to go from there, take this off to the other side, and then just keep going. Alright guys, I got the right hand side on, and I almost did what I accidentally did before. So the right hand cylinder head, the bolt, the cam bolt for that side is actually reverse threaded. So you got to be very, very careful with this. This has a tool where it basically so this will go on the cam bolt, and this will be right above it. And then what you do is you feed it from the back So let's say you're doing this on the engine, you have to use this tool to tighten the bolt down because you can't get a torque wrench back there otherwise. In this case, I'm doing it from obviously outside of the car because the engine was pulled. So you don't have to use this tool, but you still have to be very careful. Realize that this bolt is reverse threaded, so you can kind of see right there. It has a counterclockwise. I'm in the way. So you can kind of see right there, it has a counterclockwise marking. It's basically saying that to tighten it down, you have to do it counterclockwise. So to loosen it, you have to rotate it clockwise. So be very careful when you're working on one of these engines and you're doing anything with the timing. Don't accidentally over tighten this bolt trying to loosen it and then strip the inside of the cam's shaft out. So that would be really bad. Alright, got that off. I got the cam bolt slightly loosened. I don't have it completely taken off because I don't want the chain to kind of dangle or fall out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do, pull up the service manual and look at the sequence that these head bolts have to be loosened. And then I'm going to go ahead and take these bolts out on the right and left side and then pull these heads off and then see. I already know this one was pretty bad. So right here on the first cylinder, this one's going to have all the damage from the #1 cylinder piston basically cracking, but everything else should look fine. I want to see if the piston in there got messed up from running it with the bad cylinder head. I just threw it on there just for curiosity to see what happened if I ran it with the bad cylinder head, but it had a replacement piston. So we'll see right now once I pull the cylinder head off what it looks like. Right here definitely looks like it chipped off. Now whether there's a piece of metal somewhere in there or a big cut, I don't know. It might have caused issues first run idle, really rough. Maybe, maybe not. I guess I won't really know now because I've torn it completely apart. But looking at here, so there's a fair amount of carbon buildup on these two. This one was a replacement one, which for the most part, oh no, yeah, there's some scoring on the head of the piston. So if you look closely there, you can kind of tell. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. There's some light scratches on it from. Here, let me rotate the crank. Also, whenever you're rotating the crank and you have one of the heads off, you want to make sure you grab this and it doesn't get caught. So I got it top dead center now, I think. Close enough. So looking at it, I don't know if you can see that better now, but some slight scratches right there. So I guess it did end up doing a little bit of damage on the piston. Well, nothing too crazy. I imagine if I were to floor that, stuff like that, it probably would have done more damage. But I'm probably just gonna end up retiring this engine. If I can find another replacement piston to replace that one, I mean, I could put it all back together, but I still need a cylinder head, which I don't want to have to buy a new one, and then a used engine would be just as much as just buying a new cylinder head. So it's not very cost effective. And I mean, I can't really talk about cost effective when I did a Coyote swap, but that's beside the point. So I'm gonna go ahead. Now I'm gonna do the left-hand side one, and we're gonna go from probably gonna have to run the store to get a puller to take this off, so that way we can take the timing cover off, take the oil pan off, and then pretty much completely tear this thing down. Got both cylinder heads off, and you can tell, so this is the newer head gasket, this was the original, so it's pretty worn, whereas this one looks pretty new still. But definitely I'm thinking there's multiple issues that were still wrong with this engine before I threw it back on. One of them being I didn't torque these down right because I didn't chase the threads before torquing them down, so that completely threw off all the torque readings. So the head gasket probably didn't really seal up with the head, so we're having idling issues because of that. And then also on that side, the timing guide was apparently broken. I don't know if that would have caused any issues since it was still kind of like tightened down and the tensioner was still holding in place, but it might have caused maybe slight rattling, maybe stuff like that. But I don't know. So this is the overall quality of the engine. Actually, it does look like it has quite a bit of carbon buildup, but otherwise overall it's not too bad. You can obviously tell which one was the newer piston, but unfortunately it did get scratched up. So I mean, overall it doesn't look like it would affect it too much, because I mean, if you look at it, I don't know if you can see on the camera, it already has small little markings on it from putting like the part number on it and everything. And then these fine little scratches I doubt would make a huge difference really. You could probably reuse it. Knowing me, if I were to put this back together with new heads or something, I probably would just do that anyways. Other than that, I gotta go around the store, get a crank puller so I can take this off and be able to take the timing cover off and the rest of the stuff off. But real quick before I do that, let's look at the damage on this bad boy. Yeah, look right there. This is the cylinder head that was damaged. I threw it back on there because I was like, I don't care. We'll see what happens. So I mean, overall, not too bad. It has quite a lot of like scoring on there, and then throughout the rest of it. And I think this valve got nicked too. So the valve might also be another reason why I was causing idling issues. I mean, overall, you could probably like machine this down just a little bit, just a hair, and then it probably would have been fine using this. Realistically, you would have been able to at least drive it until you had like an actual replacement. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much what the damage was on the cylinder head, and then I ended up throwing it back on just because I didn't have any other options and I needed to get the car moving. It was easier to do that than I mean, at least it ran and it moved. It didn't really idle very well, but it was able to be moved. So I was able to get it on the trailer and then move it and stuff like that. But I wasn't too worried about the engine anyways. I was going to replace it. So this ended up working out for the time being. But yeah, that's cylinder heads removed. I ended up having a little bit more damage than I was expecting, and probably a lot of contributors to why it was running right. So now we're gonna go ahead and go get some stuff to finish taking the rest of this stuff apart, and then we can go from there. Welcome back, guys. Alright, so today we're gonna be working on completely tearing down this engine down to the bare block. So over here I'm working on trying to get the pulley, the harmonic balancer off. And what I'm doing is I had this tool, which I was gonna use until I realized that these two holes aren't threaded. And I mean, you could create threads in it, so you can bolt it on there and use this to pull it off. But I ended up just having this jaw puller on, which actually is not big enough. So it's barely grabbing on. I would say maybe by like an 1/8, maybe a 1/16 of an inch on each side. But what I ended up doing is I have a 14 millimeter socket, 3/8 socket on there with the 3/8 extension. And I was using a whole bunch of different combinations to try to take this off. None of them were working just because each one I was using, I tried using a socket larger than the bolt. But the pressure of this turning was just turning the bolt anyway, so the bolt was tightening down and it wasn't going to pull off the pulley. So what I ended up trying out is using kind of like this puller usually has this pinpoint, but it wasn't long enough to reach in there. So I used the socket with that extension on there and it worked perfectly. You can see kind of in there where it's pressed up against the bolt. You can see it kind of like mark the bolt a little bit, which is fine. You're not going to reuse this bolt, so it's not an issue. But I was able to do that. I cracked it off, came off maybe like an 1/8 of an inch. So I'm working my way off slowly, so make sure that these jaws don't just pry off and then accidentally hit me. So this should be off here in a bit, hopefully. I also ended up having to buy one of these strap wrenches to put around the harmonic balancer. Use that. And I use an extension with a 19 millimeter socket on the end of it to remove that bolt, so I can loosen the harmonic balancer bolt. And now I'm going to pull this off, and I should be able to take the timing cover off and be able to remove everything else on this engine. Let's just go ahead and do that and then go from there. Alright, so I got this harmonic balancer off. Not that bad a condition, honestly. It's pretty good. So right there, right at the very end, this bolt wasn't long enough to thread on into the crankshaft, and then this end was hitting up against the harmonic balancer, so I wasn't getting enough slack, or I guess length, to be able to completely take it off. I tried yanking it by hand, but no luck. So what I ended up doing is I have this, I think this is a 4-inch 3/8 extension, maybe, and then just slid it on there. So it was thin enough to go through the hole where the screw goes, and then it had enough to where it would press up right against where the screw goes, but not go all the way through. And that gave me enough, and it was already loosened, so I just needed to pry it off a little bit more. So this gave me enough slack to be able to completely pry this off. So I should be able to remove the cover for the oil pan now, remove the oil pan off, and then I should be able to take the timing cover off as well, and then be able to pretty much take the rest of this completely apart. Let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so down here I had to remove the bolts, the 2 bolts on the bottom on the engine mount, which is holding up. They were on the oil pan, so I'm going to have to get the cherry picker, bolt it up to the engine block again, lift it up to get some slack on there, and then be able to adjust this so I can get the engine mount bolted up to the bottom of the block so that way I can clear it. So right now it's kind of sitting on it, and that's what's keeping it up. But I can already imagine if I try to take the oil pan off, it's going to cause it to completely slant forward and it's probably bend those bolts. So I'd much rather just get the engine lift, hoist it up, get that slack off of it so I can put the bolts on there, and it'll be ready to go. Take the oil pan off and keep going from there. The battery's about to die on this camera, so I'm probably going to do a lot of that off camera and then go charge this battery, and then we can go from there, and we'll be right back. Alright, got it swapped out. Let's bolt up on the middle or the bottom of the block, I guess. And now I just gotta go under there, remove the 4 bolts that are kind of loose and just holding the pan up, and I should be able to take the pan off and be able to flip it upside down and start removing everything else from there. Alright, so we got the oil pan off, got it straightened out. It kind of went crooked while I was trying to mess with it to swap it out, but it's perfectly straight on the engine stand. So I should be able to take this timing cover off and then be able to remove the pistons from down here. I don't know if I'll be able to remove the bolt to the jack shaft. For those of you who don't know, the style that this engine works is you have the crankshaft and then the jack shaft is right here, and that's what has the timing. So in the front it's timing for the left cylinder head, the back has the timing for the right cylinder head. And you need like a special socket that goes over the crankshaft, or actually the jack shaft, and that allows you to loosen the bolt without it turning. So I'll see if I can get that off. If not, it's no real big issue. I'll just try to see if I can buzz it with an impact, see if it comes off. Might end up damaging it, might spin the chains, but we'll see what happens. So for now I'll be able to take off the timing cover and then be able to loosen the bolts to get the pistons out, and then maybe even get the crankshaft out. We'll see. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so I was thinking about putting the bolt to the crankshaft back on, and probably put like some washer or something that I can put on there but remove so I can still take the bolt out. But the only issue is, even if I do that, this Torx bit screw or bolt, this Torx bit bolt, it's a size I don't have. So I'm gonna have to get one this size if I want to take that off, unfortunately. So we're gonna probably run the store and try to grab that. Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so today we're gonna be taking off the jack shaft, at least for the front one for now. So I have the original crank sprocket bolt in there, and I use some nuts and washers to kind of space it out. You can probably also buy this tool, which is crankshaft holding tool, and slide it over this, and this little peg will allow you to hold this in place so that you can potentially loosen this up. So the way this works is, I'm pretty sure the tool just holds on to here, and then you can slide the socket over that, and then just have someone applying counter torque the other way so you can loosen this bolt. For the time being, since the tension and all of this is still on, I'm going to use the chains for the purpose of that by holding this down clockwise so I can loosen this counterclockwise. So hopefully this works. So that this doesn't get stuck on here, I took one of these washers and I cut a slit out of it, and it's just going to go basically right there. I gotta be careful with this because it falls out. I'm gonna hold it with 2 hands. But so that way, when this is tightened, this up top, I can take a hammer, or sorry, I can take a screwdriver and then hammer it out, and this should pop off. And once that's loose, this should have enough slack so I can take it off, so that this bolt isn't stuck in there trying to loosen this. So hopefully this will keep it from getting stuck. I should be able to just hammer it out and give it enough slack so I can loosen it, and then we'll be able to go from there. Also, I got the new larger size. This is E18 for the jack shaft. So this finally came in, so I was able to have one big enough. There wasn't any stores nearby me that had them, so I had to order this off Amazon and get this on Prime shipping. So I got it within 2 days. So now I can get this on here, and I should be able to break this loose while applying counter tension on this down here. So I'm gonna go ahead, get my breaker bar and my 1/2-inch ratchet, wherever that went. It's over here. And hopefully be able to break this loose. So go ahead, tighten this down, and then put this washer in there, and hopefully that works. Through the center with a screwdriver. The center is plastic, so it won't damage anything. And then kind of just pry at it until you get some grip on the metal part, and then be able to pry it out. Alright, you can't really tell, but got this bolt loosened up, so this is good to go. Now back here, I ended up bending this plate out of the way because I didn't feel like getting the engine lift over here, lifting up, loosening the bolts for this flex plate, and then this is easily enough to be bent out of the way. This is probably just gonna get thrown away anyways, so I wasn't too worried about it. So back here, I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna do this side. I might have to try to lock the crankshaft in place to keep it from rotating. Otherwise, you're supposed to use a tool that locks into here around it, and then you'll be able to get the socket in there to loosen that bolt. But I can't really do that because I don't have a tool. There isn't anything that I can get in there that'll fit. So we'll figure out a way. So it is quite a couple days later. Kind of took a pause on this for a little bit and was focusing on other projects. So I'm back to try to finish this off. I finally was able to find a way to get the rear jack shaft bolt loosened. That's what this crafty tool I did. So I took this 1 1/4 inch pipe from Home Depot. Doesn't really matter what size length. So I got it and cut the grooves out for the teeth, and then I had to shave down the threads a little bit because they actually stuck out a little bit. It's a little too wide, but you just shave them down and it'll work. And then I was using this coupling, this reducer, to try to hopefully use the strap wrench to hold it down, but it wasn't working. It was slipping on the strap wrench. So I ended up going back to Home Depot and got this 14-inch Husky pipe wrench, and it has little grooves on there on the top and bottom, so I was able to grab onto that, and I tightened this as best I could, and I kind of held it on there. And I had my roommate with the wrench, which I don't know where it went, right there, and I had to put an extension on it because this made it a little bit too long. So with the extension, we were able to finally break it loose. So that bolt is finally loose now. So I should be able to take off all of the timing stuff, flip this engine over, loosen the caps for the connecting rods and then the caps for the crankshaft, and then be able to finally take this all completely out and then get it down to just the bare block. So the tool itself, they actually use the OEM tool, something like $200, which is crazy expensive for something that you're probably only going to use once, maybe twice, if you're replacing the timing components. So I didn't want to spend $200 on something that I'm only going to use once. So I figured I could probably make the tool or find someone to do it. You saw me do the front one. It literally took $5 worth of washers and nuts just to loosen the front one. And then the rear one I should have done first. Actually, I don't think there really was a way to do it. But this method, it was only, I think this is like $3. This reducer is something like $4. And then the pipe wrench was like $15. But you can use a pipe wrench. But pipe wrench is a tool you can use for other things instead of using a specialty tool that can only be used for that one job. And then obviously you also have to make sure you have that torque spit, because this is a torque spit, T55 torque spit. So you're gonna need a T55 torque spit to loosen that bolt. So I'm gonna go ahead. You can actually see it's loose now. And then boom, rear jack shaft bolt, front one somewhere else, front jack shaft bolt, which is the much longer one. And then I ended up taking the flywheel off. You don't have to take the flywheel off. You can use this and shorten it down. It just needs to be like flush against the block so it doesn't hit the flywheel. But without taking the flywheel off, you have to get it a little bit closer to fit it on there, so that way it's not crooked. Otherwise, with the flywheel on, it was just barely like the tip of the teeth of the flywheel, making it go a little bit crooked. So I ended up just taking that off anyways. I bought the Milwaukee impact wrench, and it buzzed off the flywheel bolts with complete ease. It's actually really good. I'm really glad I got that. It's going to be a huge help with anything else I require where it's going to take a breaker bar. I could just use that, and I use the whatever the fourth setting is, where you buzz it off and you utilize the max torque, and as soon as it's off it slows down, so that way you can slowly take the bolt off instead of just completely flying off. It's actually very useful. I might end up using that for replacing these spark plugs in the truck, because F-150 3-valve 5.4s are notorious for having plugs being stuck. And it says to use an air impact. This might work for that. Hopefully I don't break the spark plugs, but I'll probably do a video on that and see how well this impact wrench works for removing these spark plugs from a 5.4 3-valve F-150. So I'm gonna go ahead, go from that. I should be able to take this off. It should just come off. Oh, I gotta loosen this bolt, or yeah, I gotta loosen this bolt here, and then loosen this bolt here and the two back here, so I can finally take the rest of this off. This battery's dying, so I'm gonna go swap out the batteries real quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, so as soon as you do, oh wow, so as soon as you do that, you should be able to slowly hold the gear backwards, or towards the back of the engine, and then slide it off like so. Now that I have this off, let's sit down. You can actually see now where the bottom of this broke off, if I can figure out where the, so this right here. So that was also broken. I did not realize that when I was putting it back together. So that's probably also another reason why I was running so well, is because this broke off. I thought it was just that piston and the cylinder head that got damaged, but I must have also damaged this timing chain guide whenever I was running the engine. The crazy part is though, with it installed, it didn't seem like it was any more off. So I don't know, but this for sure is toast. It's broken. I would not recommend you using that. Okay, so while I was in the process of looking it up, the service manual actually for some reason says to remove the jack shaft take off the timing and then remove the jack shaft again, which is kind of funny actually, because that doesn't make any sense. So good on you guys at Ford for having a service manual that has you to remove the jack shaft twice somehow. But it doesn't state you need a slide hammer or anything like that. Then while I was here just kind of like messing with this, I was like, let's see if I can just pull it off. And actually it's, for the most part, it looks like it'll come out. But I'll have to just get in there and try to give it a little slack and see if it comes out. Otherwise, maybe it comes out from the rear. I don't know. Oh, actually, I know why. I need to. You gotta pull this off first. Alright, before you can take the jack shaft off, you have to remove these oil pump gears right here. So this gear is gonna keep the shaft from coming out. Now, they should be able to, oh yeah, there we go. Oh, come on. Put you back in there real quick. Alright, boom, and that's out. Once it gets out, it should be able to rotate the engine and take the rest of the stuff off and go from there. Pretty much disassembled, so if anyone needs parts for a 4-liter, I have quite a few to spare. I'm not really looking for any big amount, just don't pay shipping and then everything's a fair price, we can always negotiate. Most of the stuff's still pretty fair condition, only has about 69,000 miles on them, so some of these motors go up to like 200,000 miles on like even like the bare timing. So if you need parts, just let me know. Be happy to mail them out for a fair price. And I guess with that, that's pretty much it for this video. All the other stuff was in very good condition. You can tell it's fairly clean. I mean, there's oil, and the oil's a little dark, but this oil's also 2 years old now. So this oil's been on here for a while. But for the color, it's not too bad. So with that, this part's officially done. I'm gonna clean up my mess, and I'm gonna start working on dropping the transmission on this one, cracking it open, see if there's anything broken in there, and potentially swapping out that clutch for a twin disc, and then we're gonna go from there. So with that, thank you guys for watching. I hope some of this was informational for those of you who have a 4-liter and they're trying to work on it, take it apart, rebuild it. This is going to be a complete teardown with tools you can use if you don't want to buy the OEM tools. The only thing you actually are going to need is the timing kit, which is $200, which I don't need anymore. So if anyone needs that timing kit, I'll probably let it go for $150 shipped to $120 shipped. I don't know. We'll figure out the price. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.